This lesson is going to be about filtering. So we've got an array and we're going to be filtering through the sum of the content of the array. So the first filter is going to be checking to see if the length of the string value, so only for string values, is going to be larger than 4, and it's going to return back the results larger than or equal to 4. So that's going to return back those first 3 items in the array. We've got that output into the console. The second filter is going to be using a callback function called checker, where we can still pass in all of the items, so the items, the index, and the array. And we're just simply checking to see if the value of the index is going to be larger than or equal to 2. So basically it's going to be returning back all of the items in the array that have this criteria that are matching to index value of larger than 2, and that's being returned back within the values there. Also for the next one, we are going to be filtering and only returning back the ones that have a type of string, so the data type of string. So that's where we get the 4 results coming from the array. And then we're going to be updating the array, adding in null and false value, and then using the filter in order to clean up the array and remove out any non-existing falsy values, such as null, false, 0, and undefined. So any of the empty items within the array. So this is just a quick way to use the filter in order to clean up the contents of the array and make sure that there are values there. And then the last one, we're going to have a couple conditions that the item needs to be a string, and also that it has to have the first character of the string has to be uppercase. And that's going to return back both of those results into the new array. And those are the ones that are going to be matching the criteria within the filter. The array filter allows us to create a new array that passes a certain test. So first off, we are going to need an array that we can use, and then we can apply some testing to the array contents. And in this case, we're going to be checking to see a particular length of a word and only returning back the words that have a length that is greater than 4 characters. And let's create a new array. So this array is going to have the filtered results from the first array. So we use the filter method and then returning back whatever the value is of the item and the condition that we're checking to see if value, and then using the string length, checking to see if it's larger than 3. So that will construct a new array with the filtered results being returned back and only returning back the results that have a string length of larger than 3. Can also update this to be larger than 4, so that will get rid of the test. You can set it to larger than or equal to 4, so that would be 4 as a max value. There's also a way that you can set a callback within the filter, so that will allow you to pass in the element as well as the element index value, and then you can apply the filter with that type of format. So let's create another array, and this time we're going to use the callback, so the original array information, and then filter, and we're going to return back only the items with the index value that's going to be either 2 or larger. So we'll create a function called checker, and then within the checker function, this is where we can filter the different results of the array items. And we get the item value, we get the index, and then the array itself being sent within the arguments of the function. So we can see all of these. So we can see the item, and then we can also see their index value, and also see the entire contents of the entire array object that is being used within the checker. So right now we're not returning anything back, and what I'll do is I'll log out the results for array 2. And we're not returning anything back, so array 2 is being just returned back as blank. So what we want to do is we want to check to only return back the results that are going to be matching the condition. So return back, and checking to see if index is greater than or equal to 2. And if it is, then we're going to return back those two values. So that's how you can have a condition on a callback when you're doing a filtering of the array contents. And you can have multiple conditions as well. So if we wanted to have another set of conditions, and we'll just do it directly within the filter. So we've got the item, we've got the index, and what do we want to return back? So what's the condition on the value if we want to return it back? So we want to have multiple conditions here on what we're returning back. So setting to check to see if the item has a data type of a string. So we can do type of item and check to see if it's returned back as a string. So that will only return back strings there. So if we had a bunch of numbers, that should not return back those values, and then output the result for array 3. So right now we don't have. Let's check using the console to see what we're returning back here for type of. And it looks like we are returning it back as string, but this is going to be lowercase. So that's why the strings weren't being returned back. But once we fix that, now we're returning back only the strings that are available within the array. If you want to return back the numbers, you can check to see to make sure the value is going to be a number. The type of is returned back as a number. So that will just return back the number values that are within the array. So select the array and we'll add in to it a value of null. Also add to it a value of false, so a Boolean value. And these aren't going to have lengths, as these aren't going to be string values. So only the strings that have the length, and then the numbers are also returning back as strings. So you're able to get a length for those values. So it's not being treated as a string, so it's automatically filtering through. So the numbers aren't going to have a length value, so that's why we're not able to return back the length there. Filter here, and if we only want to just get the values that exist, we can just type in Boolean. And now this is going to only return back the ones that do have a value to it. So if we were to console log out the array before we do the filtering of the Booleans, we've got the null and the false there. So once we do the Boolean filter, this is going to remove out nulls, false, zeros, and anything that is a false value, and clean up the array. So it's a way that we can do a quick cleanup of the array. So let's say we want to return back only the string values that have has a string that has an uppercase. So we can do a filter for that as well. So this is going to be a little bit more challenging, where we're going to select the items from the array and check to see only the ones that have an uppercase as the first character. So when we do the filter, we want to select the item. We want to only select the string value, and then return back the ones that are strings and that have the first character is going to be an uppercase value. So let's create a temporary variable for this, and then we can combine the logic of what we're doing for it to get the Boolean value being returned back. So we want to get to see whatever the first item is within the array. So check to see if it's a string, and returning back the string value and change it to uppercase. So that's going to be the first character. And we want to see if the first character is going to match the uppercase first character. And if that is true, then that's what we're going to do the condition there. So we check to see if first is going to be equal to the string with the first character in the string. And we're going to throw an error here because these are not all the same data types. So before we do this, we want to make sure to see if the type of is equal to string. And if it is, then at this point we can do an uppercase and return it only if it's a string, and otherwise we don't have a return on it. So that will automatically filter that content through. So outputting into the console log the results that we have for array number 5. So that returns back only the 2 string values that are within the array that have starting with uppercase and that are strings as well. So you can have multiple conditions. You can get fairly complex with your conditions. As long as they're able to return a Boolean value of either true or false, you can create these types of conditions in order to return particular values using the filter method of the string values.